There are days when fate disguises itself in the simplest forms. And those who carelessly judge based on appearances will soon realize they've made the most costly mistake of their lives. Just imagine. The soft morning sunlight gently bathes Manhattan, pouring golden honey over the glass skyscrapers and proud steel towers. At the very pinnacle of this great city, inside a lavish yet understated penthouse, Victoria Langford stands quietly, holding a cup of exquisite espresso. At 45, she is a living legend, a self-made billionaire, the woman who built Langford Enterprises from nothing, fueled by unwavering determination and a vision ahead of her time. Through countless storms, Victoria has remained true to three things: simplicity, humility, and sincerity. No need for glamorous ball gowns or blinding diamond jewelry. She chooses a pristine white silk blouse, impeccably tailored trousers, and a classic crocodile leather handbag. Everything about her radiates class, yet never ostentation. But today is no ordinary day. Today, Victoria is about to step into the headquarters of Langston and Pierce Global, the renowned marketing empire she had just acquired in a deal that shook the business world. Yet, instead of waiting for the official announcement, she has chosen a different approach. "Are you sure you want to do this personally, Victoria?" The voice of Charles, her devoted assistant, echoes through her private intercom system. "Absolutely," Victoria replies, her eyes never leaving the cityscape below. The contracts are signed, the funds have been transferred. But culture is something you can't measure in numbers. I need to see who they are when they think no one important is watching. She declines the luxurious Maybach and private chauffeur, opting instead to stride through the bustling streets of Manhattan, blending into the crowd. Simple, ordinary, but there is nothing ordinary about her presence. Charles sighs softly. "Not everyone appreciates authenticity the way you do, Victoria." A faint smile plays at her lips. "Then let's see how they treat someone they believe is of no importance." One last glance in the mirror. She adjusts the collar of her white blouse, casually slings the crocodile leather bag over her shoulder, and steps out of her opulent sanctuary into a day that will change everything. As her footsteps merge with the city's pulsing rhythm, a question rises within us, a question that is about to be answered. How will they treat someone they believe to be a nobody, not knowing that this very person holds their fate in her hands? Stay with us, because what happens next will make you see the world through entirely new eyes. Morning in Manhattan felt like a hurried symphony. The sharp blare of car horns, the hurried click of heels striking against cold marble sidewalks. The air carried the faint aroma of roasted coffee beans and luxurious perfumes, evoking an image of glamour and deception. Victoria Langford, dressed in a simple white blouse and tailored trousers, walked gracefully through the bustling streets. Her heart remained steady, fully aware that today would be a silent test for the very people she was about to lead. Inside, she was as calm as a still lake, though her sharp eyes missed nothing. As she approached the headquarters of Langston and Pierce, Victoria's gaze landed on a group of people chatting animatedly at the main entrance. The morning sun glinted off the expensive beige suit of Christine Beaumont, the woman known as the queen of client relations at the firm. Around her, other designer outfits sparkled, and the air was thick with the overpowering scent of luxury perfumes. At that precise moment, Victoria's Mont Blanc pen slipped from her fingers, rolling gently toward Christine. Fate had spoken. Christine glanced at Victoria, her eyes slicing through her from head to toe with slow, razor-sharp sarcasm. "Oh, you seem to have dropped something," Christine said, nudging the pen with the pointed toe of her gleaming stiletto. Her voice dripped with sweet venom. "Maybe you got lost while delivering coffee?" The group erupted in laughter, their jeering echoing down the street like blades twisting into anyone's dignity. But Victoria calmly bent down to pick up her pen, her movements unhurried, unervingly composed. When she lifted her gaze, there was no embarrassment in her eyes, only a piercing sharpness, as if recording every detail. A man from the group clapped Christine on the shoulder, sneering, a stray service worker wandering into the financial district. The back door's that way, miss. The laughter rang out again, sharper than before. Victoria tightened her grip around the pen, nodding slightly, as if memorizing not just their words but the arrogance behind every glance. Not a flicker of anger crossed her face. Instead, she radiated a calm so deep it left her mockers unsure of her true feelings. Stepping back, she casually raised her phone, pretending to check a message while discreetly snapping a photo of the group that had just humiliated her. A vivid piece of evidence for tomorrow. Good luck with your trivial tasks, Christine sneered before she and the others climbed into the waiting glossy black limousine. Victoria watched them leave, the corner of her mouth curling into an almost imperceptible smile. Not the smile of meekness, but the smile of someone who already knows the outcome of this battle. She sent a brief message to Charles. Internal culture audit complete. Worse than I expected. Prepare for Phase 2. As Victoria's eyes returned to the magnificent building before her, she no longer saw merely the headquarters of her newly acquired company. She saw a fortress of arrogance, bracing for the storm to come. And deep inside, she whispered, not to herself, but to those who had just belittled her. First impressions matter, Christine, and you've just made an unforgettable mark on your career. The atmosphere inside Victoria's penthouse felt compressed, thick with tension after the morning's dramatic encounter. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan buzzed and glittered as if nothing had happened. However, within Victoria, a storm was quietly brewing. Charles entered, his face shadowed with barely concealed tension. He carried a tablet displaying the latest internal report and set it down gently on the cold marble table. We have all the data now, Ms. Langford, Charles said, his voice low but firm. Christine Beaumont and her circle aren't just arrogant. They're the root of the decay in this company's culture. Here's the evidence I compiled from employee feedback, complaints, and the video recordings you requested. Victoria opened the file in silence. As she skimmed through the pages, marked with scathing red annotations, each word struck her with bitter weight. Disrespect, discrimination, nepotism. Employees pushed off key projects for personal reasons. She lingered on the employee survey results. Over half of the participants described the working environment at Langston and Pierce as stifling, toxic, and worst of all, many talented individuals had left the company, feeling they would never be valued unless they were part of Christine's inner circle. The pain of those people, their buried frustration, the words of dismissal they had endured, it all churned inside her chest. Charles watched Victoria, noticing her knuckles whiten as she gripped the edge of the table. Victoria, we still have time to postpone the announcement. You don't have to do this yourself if you're not sure. She lifted her gaze to him, her eyes ablaze with fierce determination. No, Charles. It's because I'm sure that I have to do this. She rose from her seat, her steps steady as she crossed to the filing cabinet. Retrieving an encrypted USB drive, she plugged it into the projector in the living room. The large screen came to life, displaying the footage from that morning in the plaza. The scene of Christine and her associates ridiculing her, showing her unfiltered contempt. I want this video to open tomorrow's leadership meeting, she said, her voice devoid of hesitation. We don't just need a meeting, Charles. We need a firing squad. Charles nodded slowly, any trace of doubt in him now extinguished. He no longer saw just a CEO in Victoria. He saw a blazing force of revolution. I also want, Victoria continued, the personnel reports, the ignored complaints, the statistics on how many talented employees have left. All of it. They must face the truth. There will be no place left to hide. Her gaze shifted back to the city, where thousands of lights were beginning to flicker to life. But in her mind, there was only one focus. Tomorrow, they will no longer be able to hold their heads high in hollow pride. Tomorrow, they will learn the true value of a human being. Victoria turned back, meeting Charles's eyes with unwavering resolve. Prepare for tomorrow. It won't just be the announcement of ownership. It will be the rebirth of an entire empire. That morning, Manhattan was bathed in golden sunlight, but nothing could melt away the chill that hung over the grand hall of Langston and Pierce. The air felt thick, like a storm about to break. Every leather chair was occupied, the faces of the leadership team betraying a subtle tension beneath their masks of feigned confidence. Christine Beaumont sat in the front row, her expensive beige suit flawlessly pressed, her deep red lips curved into a smug half-smile. Beside her, Jeffrey, the vice president of sales, leaned in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Probably just another young, cocky CEO who got lucky and thinks money can control the world. They'll soon find out who really holds the power here. Christine chuckled softly, her arrogance shining through every delicate flick of her hair. Whoever they are, they'll quickly become dependent on us. No one understands a client network better than me and my team. The doors to the hall swung open. The sharp click of high heels echoed against the marble floor, slicing through every murmur in the room. All eyes snapped toward the woman in the pristine white suit, her poise calm, yet sharp as a blade. Christine froze. The blood in her temples seemed to turn to ice. Her breath quickened, though she fought to keep her composure. Impossible. It was the same woman she had humiliated so brutally on the street yesterday. Wasn't it? The air felt vacuumed from the room. Some of the executives exchanged panicked glances, but no one dared to speak. I can't believe it, Jeffrey stammered, his face stretched tight with horror. Victoria Langford stood tall before the board of directors. Her gaze wasn't one of someone seeking approval. It was the gaze of someone about to pass judgment. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria began, her voice as unyielding as steel. Today is not merely the announcement of new ownership. Today is the day justice is restored. She gestured toward Charles. The lights dimmed, and a massive LED screen flared to life. The video from the previous day began to play. The entire board held their breath. On the screen, Christine and her circle were shown in vivid clarity. Every sneer, every scornful laugh, every contemptuous glance. Their laughter, so harmless yesterday, now thundered through the silent hall like crashing storms. Christine's face drained of color. The deep red lipstick couldn't hide the trembling of her lips. Cold sweat trickled down her temple. Victoria stood motionless, her eyes unblinking as the video finished in tense silence. She slowly swept her gaze across the room, pausing on every paling face. "This," she said, her voice slicing through the room's polished facade like a blade, "is the culture you took pride in building? This is how the leadership of a global enterprise treats people, treats colleagues, treats potential clients." No one dared to respond. Only a suffocating, deafening silence remained. Christine shot to her feet, her lips fumbling for an excuse. I didn't know. If I had known you were." Victoria raised her hand to cut her off, her voice sharp enough to shatter stone. "Exactly, Christine. If you had known who I was, you wouldn't have dared. But that is your problem. You only show respect to those you recognize as powerful. To those you perceive as beneath you, you trample without hesitation. And today, you will pay the full price for that arrogance." The room filled with frantic, shallow breaths. Victoria's eyes blazed as she addressed everyone. "From this moment forward, Langston and Pierce will no longer be a place where arrogance and disdain for people can exist. We will rebuild this company from its very roots. And that begins by removing everyone who has corrupted the human values this enterprise must stand for." She paused, letting every word carve itself deep into their minds like a chisel into stone. "Christine Beaumont, Jeffrey Clean, and every one of you who has been complicit, prepare yourselves. Your journey with this company ends today." A desperate gasp escaped from somewhere in the room. A few others bowed their heads, their shoulders trembling in fear. Victoria, meanwhile, stood there, steadfast as a monument, embodying not only the storm that had just erupted, but also the dawn of a brand new era. The boardroom had yet to recover from the shock of Victoria Langford's earth-shattering declaration. The air was strung tight as a bowstring, and everyone held their breath. But within Victoria, the storm had already passed, and now was the time to breathe new life into the smoldering ashes of arrogance left behind. Victoria stepped forward, the lights casting a glow over her pristine white suit, making her the undeniable focal point of the room. But no longer were the eyes upon her filled with contempt as they had been yesterday. Now, they shimmered with a mixture of astonishment, respect, and hope. She locked eyes with the board of directors, then swept her gaze across the managers and employees, watching her every move from the seats beyond. At that moment, Victoria was no longer just a new CEO. She was the embodiment of change that so many had quietly longed for. Today, she began, her voice warm yet resonant like a bell of awakening. We are not simply parting ways with individuals who have forgotten the true meaning of leadership. We are opening a new chapter, one where people come before trickery and hollow glamour. She raised her hand, and the screen behind her flickered to life, displaying bold letters, substance over surface, true value over appearances. This, Victoria declared, her eyes blazing, will be our guiding principle in this rebirth. There will be no more room for those who judge based on appearances alone. No more space for those who believe power gives them the right to belittle others. The hall was so silent you could hear the pounding of hearts among those watching her. Many instinctively straightened in their seats, their eyes brightening. For the first time in years, they felt a flicker of hope. Victoria continued, her voice growing even stronger. We will establish anonymous review panels for every project, ensuring fair opportunities for every employee. Ideas will be judged by their merit, not by who stand behind them. We will create a talent development fund to invest in individuals with potential who have been overlooked. And above all, we will reignite trust within our very own ranks. She paused, her gaze landing on a young woman seated in the back row. Emily Chun, who had been cast aside by Christine simply because she used a wheelchair. Emily Chun, Victoria called her name, her voice filled with passion. I've reviewed your file and your projects. They're innovative, bold, and full of heart. I want you to lead our new digital innovation team. The room erupted. Emily, her eyes brimming with tears, could barely believe her ears. I promise I won't let you down, she choked, her voice trembling with emotion. I know you won't, Victoria replied with a gentle yet resolute smile. Because you don't need power to prove your worth. You only need an opportunity. And now you have it. The hall burst into applause. Those who had nearly lost faith in the company felt a powerful surge of hope rekindled in their hearts. Victoria swept her gaze across the room, seeing faces illuminated as if by a new dawn, eyes sparkling with revived spirit. She knew, without a doubt, this was the pivotal moment, a turning point from which there would be no return. We are not rebuilding merely to survive, Victoria concluded, her voice echoing like thunder through the minds of all present. We are rebuilding to rise, to become a shining example of integrity, innovation, and mutual respect. Starting today, starting right here. The leadership meeting had ended, but its echoes still pulsed through every heartbeat within the company. News of the purge and the sweeping plans for rebuilding spread like wildfire. In every corridor, every small meeting room, there were whispers, a blend of anxiety and exhilaration. Victoria stood before the towering glass windows of the CEO's office, gazing down at the bustling city of Manhattan below. From this height, the skyscrapers looked like chess pieces waiting to be rearranged. Beside her, Charles held the communication strategy draft, tension on his face but expectation shining in his eyes. The campaign is ready for launch, Ms. Langford, Charles reported. The media is waiting for your official statement. Our major partners have started reaching out. They're looking for reassurance. Victoria didn't take her eyes off the view ahead. She drew a deep breath, feeling every beat of her heart, not with anxiety, but with the vibrancy of someone standing on the brink of historic change. They don't need reassurance, she answered, her voice warm, yet unwavering. They need to see the truth. They need to see that we dare to change. Without wasting another moment, She stepped into the press conference room that had been prepared. Camera flashes flared. Reporters murmured excitedly, while the large screen behind her displayed the words, "Langston and Pierce, reborn from the ashes." Victoria surveyed the packed room, hundreds of eyes fixed on her, not just with curiosity, but with a hunger to witness something real. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice clear and resonant, carrying the weight of a declaration for a new era. "Today is not a day for apologies. Today is a day for commitment. Our commitment to becoming a better version of ourselves." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Victoria pressed on. "We have looked our past failures squarely in the eye, and now we choose to confront them, not hide from them. From the ashes of arrogance and prejudice, we are building a new flame, one of integrity, of boundless innovation, and above all, of respect for humanity." Her eyes scanned the room and settled on Emily Chun, now seated proudly in the front row, a badge gleaming on her chest, Director of Digital Innovation. Emily smiled softly, but with unmistakable pride. At that moment, their eyes met, exchanging an unspoken vow. Victoria continued, her voice rising with strength. "We will make every process transparent. We will build leadership teams not based on connections, but on capability and integrity. Voices that were once buried will be heard. Talents that were once overlooked will be uplifted." A reporter raised a hand. "Ms. Langford, do you believe your major clients will leave the company after this dramatic restructuring?" Victoria didn't hesitate. "If they leave because we chose to do the right thing, then they were never truly part of our future," she replied firmly. For a heartbeat, the room was stunned, then erupted into a thunderous round of applause. Emotion surged through the room. Charles couldn't hide a proud smile. He knew this moment would be forever etched in the history of Langston and Pierce. Victoria closed her speech with a line that sent a tidal wave of emotion through the crowd. "We will never again judge a person by the clothes they wear. We will look deeper at the passion, the determination, and the integrity within each individual. And from this day forward, Langston and Pierce will be a place where these values are honored above all else." In less than a week since that historic press conference, Langston and Pierce had undergone a complete transformation. The once heavy atmosphere had been swept away, replaced by a fresh surge of energy, as if even the glass walls themselves had turned clearer to let the light of hope flood in. In the newly redesigned, open workspace, Victoria walked quietly among the lively groups deep in discussion, gone were the cold stares and guarded glances of the past. Now, every employee seemed to brighten as she passed by, greeting her not with the nervousness of subordinates, but with genuine respect for a leader who had stood up for them. Charles hurried to her side, his face more radiant than ever, his eyes shining with barely contained pride. "Ms. Langford," Charles said excitedly, "we've just received responses from our 3 biggest partners. Not only are they staying, but they're also expanding their contracts, thanks to our reforms. And what's more, the financial press is calling Langston and Pierce the Manhattan Renaissance miracle." Victoria's heart pounded in her chest, not because of financial success, but because of a deeper confirmation. What she believed in, what she fought for, was now recognized and embraced. "It's not a miracle," she replied softly, though her eyes burned with fire. "It's the result of believing in people." She spotted Emily Chun in the distance, presenting confidently to a group of international clients. Emily's voice rang out with certainty, her eyes alight with passion. When her gaze met Victoria's, Emily beamed, the smile of someone who had once been hidden in the shadows, now shining brilliantly in the light. Victoria stepped closer, listening as Emily concluded her presentation with a statement that moved the entire room. "We're not just innovating our products. We're transforming the way we see people. Because the best ideas can come from anyone, if we're willing to open our hearts and listen." Applause filled the room, not just from the clients, but from colleagues watching from afar. Victoria felt it in every fiber of her being, the pulse of new life coursing through the company. After the presentation, Emily approached, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Ms. Langford, not just for this opportunity, but for seeing me when no one else would. You changed my life." Victoria gently placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, her eyes full of profound sincerity. "No, Emily, you are the one who ignited this fire of change. I only helped make sure it didn't burn out." The very air seemed to shimmer as Victoria returned to the main conference room, where Charles was preparing for an upcoming meeting with the international press. He handed her the agenda, but his eyes couldn't hide his emotion. "Victoria," he paused, his voice husky with feeling. "Do you realize? The day you walked into this building, I thought we had only two choices, survive or fail. But you chose a third path, to live by our ideals and to win because of them." Victoria smiled, a smile full of trust and unwavering determination. "We're far from finished, Charles. This is only the beginning. Now, let's show the whole world who we really are." She stepped into the conference room, where the camera lights were already gleaming. And as Victoria Langford began to speak, her voice no longer echoed just within the walls of Langston and Pierce. It carried far beyond, across the avenues of Manhattan, throughout the entire industry, and into the hearts of all those yearning for justice and faith in the true worth of humanity. That afternoon, the sky over Manhattan was bathed in golden hues from the blazing sunset. The last rays of sunlight reflected through the pristine glass windows of Langston and Pierce, illuminating the dawn of a new beginning. Victoria stood atop the rooftop of the building, where the company was holding the official launch of the substance over surface strategy in front of employees, partners, and the international press. It was a breathtaking scene. A red ribbon stretched across the rooftop, banners fluttering in the evening breeze, and above all, countless eyes filled with hope fixed on her. She looked down at the crowd, her heart pounding, not from nerves, but from pride. Pride, because here she was no longer alone in her fight for fairness and integrity. Every person below, from the humblest employee to the most powerful partners, now stood as comrades beside her on this new path. Emily Chun, now Director of Digital Innovation, stood next to her on stage. Her face glowed, and her eyes sparkled as she looked out at her cheering colleagues. She leaned in and whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Did we really do it, Ms. Langford? Did we truly change this whole company?" Victoria gently squeezed Emily's hand, her eyes shining with deep conviction. "Not just this company, Emily," she replied, her voice warm and steady. "We're inspiring the whole world." She stepped up to the podium, the stage lights illuminating her resolute yet gentle face. And when she spoke, her voice did not just resonate across the rooftop. It rang deep within the hearts of every person present. "Today," Victoria began, "we are not just celebrating a new strategy. We are embracing a new way of life. We have learned that a person's true worth is not found in the suit they wear or the title they carry. It lies in the courage to stand for what is right, and in the kindness we offer one another every single day." Thunderous applause swept across the rooftop, but she did not pause. "Today, we are not merely closing an old chapter. We are opening a new one, where every employee is heard, every idea is valued, and every success is shared. We are not building an empire on fear, but on trust and respect." A profound silence hung in the air before the entire assembly erupted into heartfelt cheers. Some wiped away tears of emotion. Charles, standing in the front row, eyes glistening, wore the brightest smile he ever had. Victoria raised her hand, and together with Emily, she cut the red ribbon, officially marking the rebirth of Langston and Pierce. Confetti cannons fired into the evening sky. Cheers echoed across Manhattan. But what mattered most was the radiant light in every eye, the light of belief, of renewal, and of a future they were truly ready to build together. Victoria took in the scene before her, inhaling the crisp, cool air of sunset, her heart swelling with fulfillment. "This is not just a moment for today," she whispered, as if speaking to herself. "This is the legacy we leave for tomorrow." Victoria Langford's story is not just about the rebirth of a company. It is a powerful reminder for all of us. Never rush to judge someone by their appearance, because that simple woman in jeans and a t-shirt just might be the one to change an entire empire. True value lies not in flashy exteriors, but in integrity, courage, and the desire to build a fair world where anyone can shine if they deserve it. We learn that true leadership is not about sitting on a throne giving orders. It is about facing the truth, daring to eliminate toxic old ways, and paving the way for enduring human values. And sometimes, the greatest change comes from those who were once overlooked, because they know better than anyone what it feels like to be cast aside, and they're the ones who will keep the flame of justice burning bright. Personally, I believe every one of us has at some point been doubted, underestimated, or felt small in this harshly judgmental world. But never let shallow views define you. Remember, it is your perseverance and kindness that will carry you through and lead you to triumph. If this story has touched your heart, don't hesitate to share your feelings in the comments below. Share this story to spread its powerful message even further. And don't forget to like, subscribe to Toch Story, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. Because who knows, the story you hear today just might be the spark that changes your life or someone else's tomorrow.